Now we continue our coverage of the latest developments in the Trump-Russia story, with the president accusing former President Obama of tapping his phones in Trump Tower before the election. Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Coon of Delaware. And Senator, I want to begin where I began with Senator Cotton. Your reaction to President Trump's allegations that his phones were tapped by President Obama.
Well, Chris, these are remarkable allegations. I think another attempt by President Trump to change the subject. But this deserves full investigation. And the larger point, I think, I will agree with Senator Cotton on, is that it's in the best interests of our country for us to move forward promptly and get to the bottom of all of this. I believe that no president should ever directly order an intercept or a wiretap on an American citizen. That's not what our system provides. You have to go in front of a judge and get a warrant in order to conduct a wiretap. So one of two things has happened here. Either President Trump has inappropriately released classified information and was himself the subject of a court-ordered wiretap, or, and I think this is a very remote possibility, there was some inappropriate actions by the previous administration. In either case, it doesn't help our country for this to all be worked out on Twitter. It ought to be worked out in a full, fair, prompt, and thorough investigation, whether by the Senate Intelligence Committee, if they can get to the bottom of this, or by a special prosecutor.
Well, there is another possibility, too, which is that it's just not true, isn't there?
That's right, of course. Yes, it's quite possible. It's just not true. And the president offered no evidence or backing for his outlandish claims.
Why would you suggest in that clip that I just played for Senator Cotton that there are FBI transcripts that show, and I want to get your words, provide very critical insights into collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians?
What I was trying to make clear, Chris, and I appreciate a chance to restate this, is that I don't have, and I don't know of, any conclusive proof, one way or the other, about whether there was collusion between senior levels of the Trump campaign and Russian officials. But I believe that our intelligence community, which is the most sophisticated in the world, has intercepts, has raw intelligence, and it's important that the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is conducting an investigation, be given access to those intercepts, to transcripts of those intercepts, so that they can get to the bottom of this. The American people, Chris, want us to move forward. They want us to work together in Washington. And it's important for us to remember that the Russians are our adversaries. Republicans and Democrats, we have different political agendas, different political views, but we can and should work together to make sure that what intelligence there is gotten access to by the Intelligence Committee. And if they're stonewalled or blocked, that there's a special prosecutor appointed. That's the point I was trying to make.
Senator, I don't think anybody would object to that, but that isn't quite what you said on Friday. I want to replay the clip of what you said on Friday, which is different. Here it is.
There are transcripts that provide very helpful, very critical insights into whether or not Russian intelligence and senior Russian political leaders, including Vladimir Putin, were cooperating, were colluding with the Trump campaign at the highest levels to influence the outcome of our election.
Senator, we're talking here about the President of the United States. Isn't there more than a whiff of McCarthyism for you as a U.S. Senator to say there are transcripts out there that provide insight into whether or not there was collusion, but you don't even know whether they exist?
Well, to be clear, Chris, what I was trying to encourage was that the Intelligence Committee be given access to the raw intelligence. I've been told now that that's going to happen this coming week, and I think that's positive and productive. Last week on the floor of the Senate, I joined Republican Senator Marco Rubio in a joint speech to talk about Russian interference, Russia as our adversary, and the importance of us working together. And at the end of the speech, Senator Rubio said, I won't be part of a witch hunt, and I won't be part of a cover-up. So to the extent those comments that you just replayed might in some way be misinterpreted as leading to a sort of hyperventilating attitude here in the Senate about this, I apologize for that. That's not what I was trying to do. What I was trying to do, and I think is important, is to draw the American people to what joins us in common, which is the need for us to get to the bottom of this, to get access to what intelligence there is. I am confident that intelligence exists that is relevant to this question. Not that says there is collusion and proof of it. That's not what I was trying to say.
I want to ask you.
Last week there were last week there were senior Republicans and President Trump in previous weeks saying there's nothing here. There's nothing to look at. And this was just after Senator Sessions was revealed to have either misspoken or misrepresented his meetings with the Russian ambassador. I think it's in all of our interest for this to be investigated fully, fairly, and promptly, and for what intelligence exists, and I'm confident that such intelligence exists,
but
be
Senator,
made available to the Intelligence Committee.
If I may, I want to talk about the broader story here. Do you have any evidence at this point? And this investigation has been going on for a long period of time. We know that the FBI and intelligence sources were looking at this at least since October, because that's when they all came out and said that the Russians were interfering. Do you know of any hard evidence of collusion between what I call Trump world and the Russians to interfere in this presidential campaign? Not suspicions, not contacts, but evidence of collusion.
Chris, I have no hard evidence of collusion. I think what hard evidence there may be will be discovered either through a full release of President Trump's financial interest and concerns and taxes, or the intercepts that I believe our intelligence community and FBI have of conversations between and among Russian officials. And that's why I think it's important for us to get to the bottom of this, so that we're not still talking about this as an unresolved issue where we don't know the answer months and months from now.
Do you worry that this continued talk about this when we're months into this and there is no evidence of collusion? There's no evidence that any crime or anything untoward was committed. Do you worry that this continues to put this president under a cloud, continues to derail his agenda? Or frankly, sir, is that precisely the point?
Well, to be clear, Chris, I'm not the person who forced or coerced in any way Senator Sessions to answer incorrectly or falsely in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Well, we're going to get to Sessions. I promise we'll get to Sessions in a moment.
But misrepresent to the vice president.
Is the point here to keep this White House from being able to do what it's trying to do by continuing, at this point, evidence-free debate about collusion with the Russians?
That's not my goal, Chris. I recently met with the new Commerce Secretary just on Thursday to sit down with him and say, I'm on the relevant subcommittee that appropriates the Commerce Department's funding. I'd like to work with you on manufacturing policy. I think we can do things to get back to focusing on growing our economy and growing manufacturing jobs. Chris, you know me, and I think you'd recognize that I'm someone who is willing to work across the aisle. My goal here is to make sure that we defend our democracy. It's outrageous to suggest that we shouldn't investigate thoroughly and fully what are credible allegations of Russian interference in our election.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that we shouldn't investigate it. The question is, when there's talk about collusion without any evidence, is that helpful, or is that simply blocking the government and Donald Trump from being able to do what he was elected by millions of Americans to do? You wanted to talk about Sessions, so let's do that, because that was the other part of the story. Attorney General Sessions, in his confirmation hearing on January 10th, he was asked by Senator Franken, and let's put this in context. There had just been breaking news on CNN of a dossier that had come out that showed that there was compromising information about Donald Trump, and also that there had been continuous contacts between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin. And it was in that context of this breaking information that Senator Sessions didn't know that he was asked the following question. Take a look.
If there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Sir, I've only got a little over a minute left. Do you believe that Senator Sessions lied to that committee that you're a member of?
Well, Senator Sessions certainly misspoke when he said, I did not have communications with the Russians. And whether or not that is a willful misrepresentation, a lie, is something I think we should investigate. I think the Attorney General ought to come back to the Judiciary Committee and answer questions so we can clear the air and get to the bottom of this. That's the only way we're going to move forward with confidence in our system. I do think this is a distraction from governing, but it is an important distraction, one that deserves our attention in a measured and bipartisan way, because Russia did interfere with our election. and why they interfered and what the consequences are is going to matter to our defense of our democracy going forward.
Senator Coons, thank you. Thanks for joining us. Sharply escalating battle over